Hi, everybody! Amazon Prime recently released the second season of their hit show Reacher, starring Alan Ritchson. And in a surprising move for a Hollywood actor, Alan Ritchson started a YouTube channel where he posts pro-Christian apologetics content. Huicho is a huicho? Dude actually has some solid takes on Christianity, which is surprising because Hollywood is usually more known for glorifying hedonism, excusing the sexual abuse of children, and sometimes just outright worshiping Satan. Naturally, some Christians are celebrating Ritchson's videos and declaring their support for his Reacher show, while others are asking, how can a Christian star in such a violent, racy series and still claim to follow Jesus? Well, let's take a closer look and see what Alan himself had to say about it. Before the invention of television, there was book. Book was for information and entertainment, but then came movie and TV, so who needed book anymore? Now book was for getting story turned into movie or TV show, and one such book was Killing Floor, the first of many novels featuring the character Jack Reacher, written by James Grant, though when he's writing he prefers to be called Lee Child. Lee Child! Who is a British author who writes American 1980s action movie books. Book about Jack Reacher became popular and indeed was turned into movie, with none other than Tom Cruise in the title role. Surely fans would be thrilled to have such a notable actor and arguably the last great movie star portraying their beloved character. But nay, said they. Why? Because Tom Cruise is 5'7" tall, at most, and Jack Reacher is supposed to be 6'5". Cruise was almost an entire foot shorter than the character he was portraying. That's like casting Kevin Hart to play Terry Crews. And this is a big deal because 74% of the Reacher book's content is mentioning how big Jack Reacher is. The Jack Reacher movie did well at the box office, and when you make money in Hollywood, the Constitution of the United States requires that you make a sequel. So, Jack Reacher Part 2, Never Go Back, was made, when it probably should have taken its own title's advice. The first Jack Reacher is a check-your-brain-at-the-door popcorn action flick. Punch, 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 kick, 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 shoot, 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 car chases go vroom, finger removals, and Werner Herzog. It's a basic, entertaining action movie. Jack Reacher Never Go Back, however, is bargain bin at Walmart fare. Imagine someone whose entire knowledge of action movies was only having been in the same apartment while his roommate watched Stone Cold with Brian Bosworth once, and then someone hired that guy to direct an action movie. It's like that. It's not good. But since new ideas aren't as profitable as nostalgia and those sweet, sweet existing IPs, the decision was made to never not go back. Take the L after Never Go Back flopped? An Amazon Prime series got the green light, along with, after multiple lengthy casting searches, a new actor to portray Jack Reacher, Alan Ritchson, who is only 2 inches shorter than the character in the books. You know there had to be some diehard fans who still just weren't having it, though. Reacher is 6'5". It says so right here on pages 4, 18, 22, 37, 39, 61. Don't feel sorry for him. He's not a real person. I AI'd that guy. It's like you getting your feelers hurt by me calling this guy a nerd. You might remember seeing Alan Ritchson before as Aquaman on Smallville, or you might remember not seeing him in the newer Ninja Turtles movies, or you might have even watched his cringe American Idol tryout. Dude can legit sing, though. Very soulful, kind of boy band vibe, but
he possessed great skills.
Though, why such an extensive search to find the right actor to portray Reacher? Well, Jack Reacher isn't just tall. He's the embodiment of the 80s action hero stereotype. He's enormous. Like, you have to be a gym rat to get this big enormous. Reacher looks like his average day is 6 hours pumping iron and then a tight 45 minutes of crime solving before dinner. A physique like that is really only attainable from a diet crafted by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's personal nutritionist, yet Jack Reacher only eats junk food and pie, which in no way makes him an even bigger target for the bad guys, not to mention unable to run more than 5 steps without his kneecaps exploding. He's the equivalent of 4 Lizzos tall, yet can stand in broad view of the bad guys and they still never see him coming. But he's not just a pretty pile of biceps. He's world-wise and street-smart, yet has a mastery of every academic subject from astrophysics to underground blues musicians. He's cold-blooded, yet kind and caring, wildly headstrong, yet humble, is indestructible enough to survive explosions, can speak every language ever, and is also basically psychic. Did I mention he's also explosion-proof? Lee Child described Reacher this way in the book A Wanted Man. One of the largest men ever seen outside the NFL. He was extremely tall and extremely broad, and long-armed and long-legged. His neck was thick, and his hands were the size of dinner plates. A wild man, but not really. Yep, it actually says that. His gaze was both wise and appealing, both friendly and bleak, both frank and utterly cynical. So basically, he's Superman, Sherlock Holmes, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Mr. Rogers. The new Reacher show would spread one novel out over a season of episodes, which usually helps translate all the nuance and subplots from a novel to the screen. At least when you're not just chopping one book up and adding unnecessary filler so that you can make multiple movies as an obvious money grab. Anyway, the first season was a hit. Audiences liked the story, they liked Ritchson as Reacher, and they liked the 1980s action movie ethos of an avalanche of machismo, ego, bravado, and where did Reacher's shirt go?
Everyone's always jealous.
All covered with lots and lots and lots of cheese. And because money happened, a second season was required by law. It is more of the same, but now with animal hormones, to help Ritchson overswole even more and get that classic roid complexion.
I will say testosterone helps.
It also focuses on Reacher's military team of special investigators, who constantly chant the eye-roll-worthy line, "You don't mess with the special investigators," which is odd because the entire season centers around the bad guys messing with the special investigators, including killing most of them. So people do mess with the special investigators, and usually do a pretty bang-up job of it. The genre is action, and unsurprisingly, it's violent. If you like your bad guy's arms, knees, and ankles to go during fights, this show was made for people like you. I personally like the elbow. Elbow, 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 airbag wheel brace, atomic elbow. But should a Christian be making, or especially starring in, this type of show? Well, here's what Alan had to say.
I love playing Reacher. I love telling this story. I love playing a character who creates a kind of moral ambiguity that we should struggle against as we consider whether or not what he's doing is good all the time or morally right. But it's funny to me how a lot of people criticize me, supposed Christians especially criticize me for playing Reacher, as if the only TV that should exist is seeing people silently folding their hands in the pew of a church. I mean, what kind of stories are we supposed to tell? If you look at Scripture, what do you find? You see 1,000 years of an infinitely holy God holding tension with human beings as he tells the story of who he is, reveals who he is through an imperfect people. We get stories of paganism and a war and bloodshed. We see this incredible canvas where God is completely unafraid to tell the story of who he is through less than morally ambiguous characters, through pure evil sometimes.
It's rare for an actor to be outspoken about the Christian faith. I mean, painters paint, sculptors sculpt, actors vote Democrat and sleep around a lot. But I think Alan does have a point here. We live in a fallen world, and turning a blind eye to the evil and villainy that surrounds us is just ignoring the problem. Admitting evil exists is the first step to correcting it, protecting the innocent, and pursuing justice, something many governments these days are directly opposed to. Why do you think that is? To Alan's point, we couldn't even read the Bible if we avoid everything unsavory. Scripture is filled with stories of injustice, theft, murder, rape, adultery, bestiality, infanticide, demon worship, human sacrifice. Those things are way worse than ankle crunches. They're never prescribed as appropriate behavior, but they did happen. And we learn a lot about God's character by how he dealt with those things, and how he instructs us to deal with those things as well. Films like The Passion of the Christ or The Sound of Freedom show extreme violence to portray Jesus' execution or our world the way it is, and I personally don't have a problem with Christians portraying such things. Though, don't get me started on otherwise non-violent Christian productions that write new words to put in Jesus' mouth and craft fictional stories about his life that convince millions that he said or did something he didn't actually do. But that's another video. But Alan's explanation completely skipped something. 80s action movies weren't just known for their violence. They were known for sex and violence. and Reacher also copies that page out of the 80s action playbook. In Season 1, Reacher and his 90-pound fireball of a girl boss partner who has never left rural America and only worked as a deputy at a tiny little police department in a sleepy little farm town, yet is somehow a world-class detective who can beat down men 3 times her size, they share a gratuitous sex scene. I started watching Reacher because of Alan Ritchson's Christian YouTube videos, and the positive comments there from Christians who watch this series. So given that, and that in his videos he has such passion for living rightly, avoiding sin, and even holding to proper sexual ethics, I was honestly shocked when this scene came on screen. How could Alan address the violence in the show, but not talk about the nudity and sex scenes? In really real life, Alan has been married to his wife since 2006. So, is it not a sin for a Christian to drop trow and make out with somebody they're not married to as long as they're acting?
I don't think so.
Making out is what we call it here in the US. But my British dudeman beings, why do you call it snogging? That's disgusting. And why is because, what comes to your mind when I say think of words that start with sna? Snot. Snogging sounds like snot tobogganing. That's disgusting. Making out sounds like, we made out. We got it done. That was okay, right? Which is what most people optimistically think immediately after doing it. Married people, that is, kids.
Rabbit trail.
But here's a different take from another Christian actor, Neil McDonough. You might remember him as that one guy in Captain America, that one guy in Minority Report, and for all the real men out there, Buck Compton in Band of Brothers.
Several years ago, I was really tested. I was fired from a TV show because I wouldn't do a kissing sex scene. I was blackballed for 2 years. I couldn't get a job. And because of that, I lost my big, beautiful house in Los Angeles, my shiny Mercedes, all my stuff. They thought that I was some religious zealot, but to me, it was just that I didn't think it was the right thing to do. And as I've said, and I'll say it a million times, these lips are meant for one woman. I won't kiss another woman because, as a villain, I may kill 10 guys in a scene. And when we're filming the scene, it's actually kind of funny because it's so absurd. But at the end of the scene, we're like, hey, have a great night, see you later, let's go have a great time. I didn't actually kill anybody. But if I'm in bed with another woman and I kiss another woman, guess what I'm actually doing? I'm kissing another woman. I don't want my kids to see that. I don't want my family to see that. I really don't want God to see that. Keep the faith. Stay the path as hard as it can be at times, and you will receive God's favor.
On this issue, I gotta side with Neil. As Christians, we'll all be presented with opportunities to compromise. Doesn't matter whether it's an acting role, a romantic relationship, or corporate statements from HR we're told we need to sign to keep our job. If it's something Christ wouldn't be okay with, we shouldn't do it. I mean, how many spouses or Jesus would really be okay if you said, it wasn't adultery because I got paid to do it? Real talk. I've been a full-time musician for a little over 18 years now, and I know there are some Christians who would take exception with me performing secular songs at the events I get hired to play, though I do refuse to perform songs that are blasphemous or celebrate abusing or demeaning women and so on. I see it just like any other occupation, though. Should a Christian mechanic only work on Christians' cars using parts that were made by Christians in a Christian factory? I think not. And I think the guy who made more wine for a wedding party that had already exhausted their wine supply isn't the stick in the mud some legalistic Christians would have us believe. Similarly, being in the world but not of it means we don't seclude ourselves from society. We all know people and groups that abandon interacting with culture altogether, and arguably, they lose their effectiveness at being a witness to the people who need to hear the gospel the most. The Apostle Paul even said in 1 Corinthians that he was all about speaking in a way that different cultures could understand and relate to. And you can't do that if you know nothing about their culture. On the other hand, partaking in sinful behaviors that modern culture approves of, but Jesus doesn't, sends the wrong message about what following Christ really means, and calls into question how legitimate our faith really is. Are we just making excuses for a paycheck, a career move, or the approval of another person? Is Alan Ritchson an authentic Christian who's just misled on these issues, or is he just pandering to Christians to boost the numbers for his show? Or is he a real Christian, publicly justifying his own moral compromises in the hopes of convincing himself and others that he isn't violating his own belief system? Only Alan knows for sure, and Not surprisingly, he hasn't responded to my request for an interview. And I sincerely wish the guy the best, and I hope his success and his platform both continue to grow. I hope he continues preaching the truth about salvation through Jesus, and I also hope he continues dropping atomic elbows on the bad guys. But I also hope he reconsiders the actions he's engaging in on screen in light of how we're instructed to live as Christians, for himself, as well as for those who could be tempted and misled into justifying their own sinful behaviors as a result. I mean, we're all inclined to make excuses for the sins we find hardest to resist. I'm no exception. We don't need any help in that department. We need to be focusing on Jesus' teachings, how Scripture instructs us to live, and being open to correction from others to identify our weaknesses and blind spots so we can continue to become more like Jesus. So, while I can't recommend Christians watch Reacher, it appears the VidAngel content filtering service is currently providing their subscribers the ability to watch Reacher with all that racy content removed. So, if that interests you and you like your ankle crunches without boobies, the link for a free trial of VidAngel is in the description for this video. You can also support my channel by donating via the links in the description. And for those of you who have asked, I am working on an option for international and recurring donations. So thank you guys very much for being interested in that. I'm new to this, but we're getting there. If I could switch over to doing this full time and just making videos that tell people about Jesus, I would be a happy guy. And to wrap up, it's important that we as Christians live our lives according to Christ's words and the Bible, always pursuing holiness, regardless of what modern society says is acceptable. Remember, eternity is on the line, and that lasts forever. I hope you choose wisely and keep on thinking to infinity.